Table Talk is not your typical D&D TTRPG podcast. We are not here to run you through our whole campaign.
We're here to talk about everything else in the space of tabletop roleplay.
I'm your host, Alejandra Wilhelm.
And I'm also your host, Mariah Gresham.
And we're your tabletop roleplay girlies. Alrighty, and we are live with another episode of Table Talk. Welcome back. Today we have another one, just me and Mariah, your favorite TTRPG hosts. And we wanted to talk about a little bit about theater of the mind versus like physical battle maps and like playing online versus at the table and like all the different things that you can do to stay engaged, the benefits, the pros, the cons. Of either or.
Yes.
I'll start with you. Start with theater of the mind.
Yeah. So like the games that I primarily run are theater of the mind, just sort of by VTM is typically theater of the mind. Like I've never run D&D. We play a lot of theater of the mind, especially like in Strixhaven. We do have minis with combat, but like we've also used like a good old Hershey's Kiss to represent like whatever we're fighting. And that for me is fine. Like minis are great and they're cool and they're sick. And you know, when you watch like Critical Role and that brings out the big, I mean, or you watch like some of our other TTRPG friends who have APs and like they have these awesome sets. Like it's really cool. It's tough to do those. Like those things are like, they take up a lot of space. They're pricey. Like you don't need them, right? I feel like when you're running, like, especially for D&D combat, I think with other systems, it's less
necessary.
Yeah. And not that it's necessary if you need, but it makes the combat a lot easier. Because it's hard to tell where if you're like, oh, how far am I away from the enemy? Or if I'm trying to flank something, like, where is the enemy in conjunction to, like, the pillars in this ballroom, conjunction to my other party members? Like, is a party member going to get caught in the fireball? You know, like, things like that you are really helpful to have, like, something. Even if
some
you're
point
using,
of reference.
Yes. Even if you're using, like, candies or, like, little rocks you found down by the river or like X's, like markers on like a dry erase sheet or like whatever. Like when we run Alyssa's games, we play with our little plastic dinos.
Yeah,
which, like,
that she brings from work.
Yeah, which they're very fun. We love them. Like you need something just to mark where the things are.
Yeah.
But for me, it's not required. I feel like I also just like, I get very overwhelmed and stressed out by the presence of too many minis because having anything like that where I'm like, no, it has to be organized or I'll freak out. Yeah. Like I'll lose my mind. So the prospect of like having a bunch of minis stresses me out.
For sure.
But if they were like, if somebody else had them and I could just go and play with them, that'd be great. Like, do I want to have them at my house?
An entire room devoted to the storage of said minis? No.
Not necessarily. Will I go to your future house and help you organize them? 1000%.
Absolutely.
With joy in my heart.
No, yeah.
I just don't want them here.
I do want like the dedicated space. Whether that's like not, it doesn't need to be in my house. It could be like a section of the garage that is just shelving.
Oh, totally, yeah.
And I put a bunch of them in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And like
little like label them, have little drawers.
But I also like love painting minis. So like the idea of like getting a bunch of cool minis and like the hard part.
I would like to paint. I would like to paint them. I still don't want them in my house.
Yes, I like the hard part is the cost of minis.
Yeah, the cool minis are
like I eventually want to invest in like a good like resin printer and put that in the garage and like let that
just off to the races.
Yeah, just produce what I want.
Have a little factory for boys.
Exactly. I personally like. I love the two separately, and I think they are essential for different kinds of play. Exactly like you said. Like, I think theater of the mind is a lot more effective at painting a picture than minis ever could. Even if you have the dopest and coolest
you have
minis.
Like a limitless budget.
Yeah.
For everything. Like you still are going to have to describe the atmosphere, the sounds.
Exactly. Like not
you would drive yourself
crazy. On full Matt Mercer giving you a 1-to-1 scale of a beautiful fantasy landscape.
Right. Yeah.
with everything done to the nines. 'Cause
Yeah.
they also have an entire production crew.
Yeah, or like Dimension 20, where it's like they have an entire team of people who's
Rick Perry
paid.
is a god amongst men.
Rick Perry and his team's paid occupation is to make weird bears that you can take apart and fight inside. Like, that's someone's professional job.
Tier and level that, like, you're not necessarily gonna get to at any point in time soon.
Yeah.
But I think, like, theater of the mind is such an effective tool at painting that picture. And I personally, like, when I'm at tables where we are doing theater of the mind, again, I'm also a maladaptive daydreaming hoe. So half the time I feel like I've been watching a movie and then I zone back in. I'm like, oh, there's a table and there's like Hershey Kisses.
You sort of can, if you can maladapt
dinosaur toys, and I've been imagining
you
a
get
Game
like
of Thrones
punted
saga.
back into reality. Exactly. I do the same thing. And it's like, it is helpful if like if you're, and I guess it's a fortunate thing to be someone who can like maladaptive daydream and imagine to that level, even if it is at times not conductive to being productive in life.
Yeah.
But because you can kind of pick up with it and you can just run it on home.
Yeah.
Right.
And if anything, like theater of the mind is what initially like hooked me with the games. Yeah. Because we played at that table and like the first time that moment clicked for me that I was like, oh, like I fully visualized everything that happened at this table. Yeah. And it was dope.
Like I have enough information to visualize what's happening.
It's the same effect I get when like reading, for example. And I feel like I feel like the words stop being perceived somehow and I just go into a whole movie.
You go into like a fugue state and you're just
and so like that for me is like correct. I love that.
Yeah, I love that
so much. But like you said, like having a physical battle map, doing theater of the mind for combat in D&D as a DM, if y'all look at me and you're like, what's the distance between this guy and this guy? And I'm like, you think I've been keeping track of this shit? Yeah. Absolutely not.
You better get to counting, babe.
Absolutely
counting them little squares.
Not. And I cannot be bothered to have like a little simulation going in my computer when I need to look at a million other things.
It's too
at the
much.
same time. No. Yeah. And so like having a map with quick reference and like there's certain things that will be nice to be like, yeah, I know where the enemies are, what the battle map is. I also kind of low-key know where the secret things are. And I can keep that in mind as I'm watching y'all explore like a dungeon or, you know, interact with enemies and things like that. Having that quick point of like physical reference is important, especially for the crunchiness of D&D combat, because you do need to know distance. You do need to know like whether you have cover, whether there's other shit. And like the point you had with the space, obviously in the beginning, I don't have the space to house a bunch of 3-dimensional like landscapey
and like
shit.
Especially when you get into like terrain. And so that's my little hovel that I could get sucked into far too quickly is like, oh, let's buy an oak tree and a pine tree and a fucking ash and a cedar. And I'm like, I'm just here with like my amalgamation of tiny trees. And I'm like, how did I get here? Like I would, if I allowed myself, I would be that person.
Yeah. And like my compromise to myself was getting skinny minis.
Skinny minis are great. Skinny minis make me very happy because they go in their little binder and they mind their business.
And you can just neatly tug them away. Yeah. Or like I put a bunch of terrain skinny mini stuff in like a single box.
Yep.
And then whenever I need a tree or I need a crate or a chest or what have you, I still have something to physically represent it.
Yep.
And that way, like the thing that I like most is when I put things down on a map like that, then it can change combat or your decisions for combat because then you see things that you can interact with.
Oh, totally.
And you might be like, okay, well, what if I climb up in this tree? What if I knock this pillar over on this entire family of goblins?
It helps the space become a bit more 3-dimensional.
Exactly.
Where like, but also takes the labor off the DM for not having to be like, okay, it's a 75 by 80 foot room
like
with pillars spaced every 6 feet and the columns are 2.5 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
And I mean, like some people may love to do that and that but it's not how our brains work. And so like one, we wouldn't as players, you wouldn't remember all of that information. And two, like that's an enormous
No,
like,
I'm a
mental
directionally
load.
challenged bitch. If you put me in a labyrinth that is purely theater of the mind, I won't I
Bold of
be
you to
stuck
think
there forever.
I remember how to get us out of here.
Absolutely.
Because I don't.
Can I roll a survival check? I can just say that my character did it. Because if you're relying on my knowledge of what the fuck I just did,
no,
absolutely not.
We're gonna die in this dungeon.
We live here now. I'm gonna set up a tent, and this is my home.
Honestly, yeah.
But yeah, no, like I think the physical maps. I also I fell into a whole rabbit hole, and like this was with your arc specifically, where I was like, this is now a thing I'm gonna do every time. Where when each of our arc finales, I'm gonna find like a really pretty art of a map. That
the maps were so sick.
And I'm going to just take that shit to CVS and print a poster the size of like what a normal map would be.
Yep.
And it has the grid lines already. And then you have this really beautiful, there's so many amazing artists.
Oh, maps. Yeah. And like they're so intricate and they have like everything that you would want to have information to interact with is drawn in.
Yeah. Which again, like another little hack for if you're like trying to start D&D and you do not have the abundance of resources to buy like a bunch of shit for it, just find a cool map and get it printed for cheap at like a CVS or something. And then it has all of the stuff already in there. So then people just need, again, they don't even have fucking minis for themselves, just use a fucking Hershey Kiss or like a little whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to use candy for the enemies because then when you kill them, you get to eat the candy.
And it's like a reward.
It is like a reward.
But
there's something to be said for that.
It's the main crux of it is you just need like the squares and something to represent distance and something to represent the enemy versus the characters.
Yeah, I know like we've done like use like laminated wrapping paper. Is that because like wrapping paper will have the guidelines to cut it on the back so it has the little squares. And so like that can work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now laminating wrapping paper might push you over the edge, but I mean people do it every day.
Yeah.
So
if you're on a bare bones budget, that's all you need. Because then theater of the mind does the rest of the work. Like at the end of the day, because it's the difference between just a plain sheet of paper with grid lines on it, and then like basically a bougie toy set that you've purchased
a fancy Lego set
you've purchased with your adult money.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're still sitting in front of a table just of pieces and paper and whatever. And theater of the mind does the rest of the work to paint the full picture. You just need point of reference. In my opinion.
Absolutely.
But like, our game is definitely way more theater of the mind heavy because we do a lot of role play. We do a lot of slice of life, like what your day looks like or whatever. And I can't be bothered to have maps.
We don't need maps.
I'm like, you have the map of Strixhaven campus for reference if you want to tell me you want to go somewhere specifically.
We have like boards, like complete channels in our Discord with pictures for what we don't need maps.
We don't need that.
Yeah, when we're playing Strixhaven, y'all are like, okay, take all your shit off the table. Like it's like, oh god, we're about to die. Because it is like an event where we're like, all right,
if I have to bust a map out,
let me move the Pepsi and the chips and dip and like my 18 drinks and the bag of chips and so it's in the middle of the table.
The maps are rare and far in between, but when they do happen, I also like that it adds a little bit of an effect of like,
it does too. It's
real now. Like we're doing active shit.
It's time to pull it together.
Yeah, it's
time to button it up.
No more ha-has. No more throwing ass in the club. We got.
We need to stay at home.
We need to stay at home or stay in this dungeon. But and like, I mean, I have a deep love and affection for physical tables because then, we've played at tables that are more combat heavy.
Yeah.
And I definitely need the structure and the reference of all of that there because
I have no hope to pay attention if it's combat heavy and it's not in person. I just know who I am. I will zone the fuck out. Yeah.
The mental awareness during those games can be a struggle. And I also feel like during online games, which is also pretty common. One, I feel like my attention span in those is already shot most of the time. So if I don't have a map where I can quickly zone back in and remember like where am I, where has everyone else moved, then if I don't have that, I have dick all.
Yeah, especially if it's like if it's a stream or something like how we play on like Janelle's with Fade Dark Clips, like that one's easy. Like I don't have a problem focusing there because I think my brain is aware that it's a stream and people are watching it. So I'm very like on. But yeah, with just like I don't play in. I used to play in some online games. I don't play in them anymore, just because life got too busy. But yeah, that was a consistent struggle for me to just like stay dialed in. Whereas like I don't have that in person.
Yeah.
It's night and day difference for me.
I also feel like Janelle's stream, the Fate Dark Eclipse one, is nice because I think genuinely it's the first time I've played one that has more theater of the mind elements, but I do feel genuinely like tuned in the whole time. It also like it matters that we play with a bunch of like cool people and like they have interesting
everyone
characters.
On that stream is great. Yeah,
they love role play. Cool. It's all the same. We're all riding the same wave, which is so nice. But like for other games, I need that physical map as like my little crutch. Of a
now like I'm like, wait, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, because sometimes it'll be, especially like I feel like I've played online games in rather large groups.
Oh yeah, then
like
it really is
closer
hard.
To 6
if you have
or
like
7.
a 6 or 7, like it takes half a fucking hour
to
get around the horn. And then if combat goes like, I think in my like combat, especially in D&D, can drag very easily. Yeah. Like I remember like when we were watching the like Burrow's End, one of those fights, Abria had one where she's like, combat doesn't drag at all. Like, and I'm like, no, like, and that was such a fun, 100%. Relatable moment. Because I was like, no, it do drag. Like even in like the coolest, most optimal setup of like when you're going around and everybody has to take their turn, and everybody has to do their move action and bonus action. It takes real world time.
Yeah. And
like it is at times hard to stay engaged for the entirety of that. And yeah, like we've played in some bigger like 6-person tables, and it's like, oh, we gonna be here a minute.
We're gonna be here for a solid minute. I feel like in those games with combat, the only thing that keeps me engaged is when they're like very stressful, high stakes combats, because then I'm like, okay, I need to, especially when I'm playing a fucking spellcaster, because like, by God, you have to spend, I appreciate the time it takes for them to get to me, because I have to read through every fucking spell that I have.
Yeah, and it sucks when halfway through the like field of battle changes dramatically.
The person right before you does something that changes everything. And they're like, hey, it's your turn. And you're like,
I was prepared.
I need to recalculate like everything I did for the past hour.
I need to skip me. I need 15 minutes. Like I have to read.
I hold my action, and the condition is when I figure it the fuck out.
Before we circle back around and it just come back.
It'll happen at some point. I promise you. Just let me think about it for 2 seconds.
That's the worst when you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'll do this, I'll cast, and then they'll do that, and then something, and it's like, oh, it's a different fight now.
Yeah, fuck me. Cool. I guess
that's great.
Fuck every spell that I've ever read. It turns out the thing that I need is a spell I didn't prep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it be. That's like one thing I always liked. The first character I played was a sorcerer, and I did like how I was like, you know what you know, and that's it. Like, you got it or you don't.
Yep.
So there's no like buyer's remorse of like, oh, I didn't bring this one with me. Like I didn't prep this
pack
spell.
It in my bag.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know that one. Sorry about it.
Get out of luck, buddy.
I ain't got ice attacks. I'm leaving fire. Like,
fuck. I need to play a sorcerer. I haven't played one.
They're fun. They're very like low. They're very low key and like low stress as a caster. 'Cause, it is like. I mean, they're squishy, so it's like it's harder after you like for me after I've played like a paladin. It's hard to go back to anything else because you have good charisma. Paladins like fall in 5e is the ability spread.
Yeah.
So it's like it hurts to have dex that's absolute like dog shit, but yeah, your AC is good, you're strong, you have good charisma, like it
rounded out in other ways.
Yeah, you're pretty good on like a lot of things. So it's like, dang, I play like other characters and I'm like, wow, she has no social. She's never known a conversation in her life.
I find it very difficult to play characters that don't have good charisma. Like,
it's
even
funny.
when it's not optimal for a class, I will throw enough in charisma to get by because I really can't. I can't dump that one.
You gotta have like it's like a +2 in there.
So at some point, I'll play like a really dumb fucking like no charisma character.
Well, it was like Maeve, which before I left Teddy's game, like Maeve had a -2 charisma, so I just played her as a little bit of sociopath, which is fun in its own way. If she's just inherently bad to be around in a way that is not intentional. She's just very creepy.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was fun. But yeah, if it's just like it's like having very, very low intelligence. You're like, damn, can this bitch read? Like, at what point are we like?
It's like you with Ragna. You're like, I need you to look at this book for 2 seconds longer than normal just to notice a thing.
Literally. Literally. Yeah.
This book that you should have already.
You've seen it before. I just need you to harken back through the years, please. Yeah, God love it. Having Revna roll anything that's not fucking women or killing people is rough, but
I built her for a very specific purpose. I
adore Revna, and it's hilarious. But it's like, and I think like now it'll be fine. There was really just that one roll where I'm like, I need you. I bottlenecked myself where I was like, I need you to see something, or it's not gonna hit the way it needs to. And then I'm gonna try to not like bottleneck myself like that again. But yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm being like, you're rolling 2 dice and I need 2 successes. Please.
Please, I beg of you.
Like,
I beg of you. Oh man. What is your favorite? I'll ask both. What is your favorite like theater of the mind moment you've had in any game versus like a physical map mini situation?
Ooh, that's a good question. Especially theater of the mind moment. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. I'm trying to also think of something because I don't want to just cheapen out and say like my arc finale.
Uh-huh.
That one was very good. The minis were, I feel like the shift going from theater of the mind into that, like when you sent us away from the table and when we came back and there was a map set up, it felt different. Also, when we were on the Critting and Grin stream, and so like he had, like we were kind of Skyped in because like the most of the party was playing in person and we were guests and we were Skyping in. And so we had the Roll20 map of like a ship online, but also we were watching like a live stream into the room. And like
he had like a top-down camera where we could see the table and cameras that we could see them.
Yeah, it's dope setup. And like he put an actual, we were like fighting on a ship. And so he had an actual ship that he set on top of like the Roll20 mini that was like projected onto like a TV screen that was on the table. That was really cool.
Yeah.
That was really well done. And I liked that a lot.
Especially because it gave that element of like, again, keeping track of things, because then we were able to easily track things because he had somebody like manually moving the minis on our Roll20 map.
Yep.
As things were moving in the physical ship. And vice versa. So, like, the people that were playing physically knew where we were at anytime. And then we knew where they were at and, like, what was going on.
Yeah.
And that was such a well done.
We still got to see the cool stuff that he was putting out on the table. Like, that's probably one of my favorite physical minis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lord. Theater of the Mind. That's like picking a favorite child. It really is. It's something from Strixhaven.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I'm so emotionally invested in like that campaign and all of the characters, particularly mine. It might be some of the ball scenes from Strixhaven. I'm going to say something and then we're going to stop recording this episode and I'm going to remember something and be like, why did I say that? I know my favorite theater of the mind is in Strixhaven. It is truly hard to narrow it down because we have such good moments in those games. And it's very interesting. Like I'll be interested when we're all living in the same city and we maybe play a little bit more, like how that'll be.
How that'll change.
Well, I don't know that we'll play. I think it'll just be, I'm sidetracking the conversation now, but it'll probably be like, you will each run something once a month.
That's true. We're going to play a lot more often, which would be nice.
Yeah. So it's like, we'll probably still play Strixhaven once a month, but we'll also play VTM once a month.
I think some of mine, like physically, of like the more recent stuff we've done, I have a love for when we did our first fight in the Alderaan camp.
That one is what's really good
and
too.
He was really like, I love that he was just finessing it with like the 3D mini stuff that like the shop had, but he set up like a whole little coliseum.
Yeah, that was
cool.
Like,
you know, tiers and
multiple levels and
and that combat specifically stuck out in my brain a lot because it was so dynamic, and we had so much to like factor in. We had, you know, obviously like the people in the audience, we had the people that like were kind of like the fanatics that instigated the whole thing. And then I'm like in the middle of this coliseum as shit is popping off, and all of my allies are spread out.
Scattered in the
and on top of that, most of them aren't even my allies yet, so I have no reason to like ask for their help.
Yeah, that was funny and weird too, because it was like, like justifying how each of our characters ended up in that fight was funny.
And it was very interesting to me because I loved having all of the physical stuff there to play with on top of like me managing the fact that I've been through like several rounds of combat before the stuff even popped off. So my girl was depleted
already.
Already. And so I was like trying to math out my escape route.
Yep.
And because I was like, if I keep her there, she will die. Like she is on low health and she has one spell slot and dream.
Because you were supposed to like wrap up your little heroine and I was get your good boop to like heal you again, and then you were gonna be great.
And it was very high stakes in my mind for me, and I was like weighing between, okay, can they get out? Can I get out quick enough to like live while I'm being chased by a bunch of basilisks through this fucking
and also
Coliseum?
like because there was like a basilisk by the exit, and like we had to like go out, and like if you were exiting a stadium in real life, you had to like get to the bottom, go out, go around.
When I got out of the arena and I thought I could just leave.
I thought that too.
And he's like, no, you got to go around.
I'm like,
and I was like, God damn.
I'm like, fuck you mean I got to go around.
It's like remembering that you parked on the other side of
literally
this thing.
You go out like the wrong door at the grocery store, and you're like, cool, I'm just going to trek across.
Yeah, so I'm just like going through a narrow ass hallway being chased by a basilisk and just hoping I outrun it.
Yeah.
Basically. And
that fight, I still played a gunslinger at that point, and that was a very fun fight to play a gunslinger.
Oh yeah,
because I was just blasting. Like I like stepped. She was like a Shadowcry gunslinger, so like I say fade step. That's the Dragon Age. Misty step down, and then I was just blasting people.
Yeah,
like from the bottom, and that was really fun.
Yeah,
but that was definitely like every turn in that combat you had to maximize,
absolutely,
and like get the most out of your character so that you didn't get overrun.
Yeah, and it was also like one of those that like we came into that with a DM who like was very upfront. He's like, this is going to be hard. I am aiming to like down a few players at least. And so we came in there with like our absolute A game. Like no haha funny. Like no, I built this bitch for this campaign specifically. And like I meant like the way that I managed to escape, then me getting to watch all of you like utilize that space to its full potential and get yourselves out. And I was like, as far as physical map like games that I've had, that one feels the best to me. Because that was like a moment of pride for us as players. And then it was just a cool combat to like go through and utilize the space, which I hadn't had like a whole, even in our Ravenloft like game.
No, not really.
We had like, maps sometimes and like
that combat was more theater of the mind driven.
Yeah.
It wasn't as like, and there is like, I guess there is something to be said about the use of minis, the way that it can kind of give you height and depth in the space, because like there were levels to the, like it was a stadium. So like there were the different floors and everything where like having that physically represented, like we were saying earlier, like it gives like a different level of like,
that's what I enjoyed about it.
Yeah. Whereas like even if it is like if you're doing theater of the mind, you know, like, you could do it, not that, but it's much harder. And a lot of times it kind of does turn into like everyone's on a flat plane and we're firing shit at each other. And it's whoever.
Like I thought about like, for example, our Ravenloft campaign and like where we were in Waterdeep, was it? Like the pirate domain, basically. And like anytime we were in naval combat, it was kind of like, I mean, we had like a flat laminated sheet of a ship.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, like you're all on the same level, as opposed to like, imagine if we had like a physical 3D ship. Like I've seen some that have like, you know, they don't have the sidewalls so you can see every level and you can place minis in between.
Yeah.
So then whenever, you know, Bex's character, Tanari, is like at the bottom talking to people, we could have like a actual representation of that. And so like that's the little parasite in me that wants all that physical shit, because like since that first combat with Teddy in that Eldaring campaign, I was like, I
would be
want
nice.
some physical shit to throw in here for when we do combat, because I want to watch y'all engage with that,
like move through the Forbidden Barbie dream house.
Exactly. That's what I want.
Yeah,
I want to watch y'all like utilize the space.
It would also be very fun to like print all of our and like, you know, paint them and like have just like play with stuff that we've painted and stuff.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
Yeah. And then like theater of the mind for me, I feel like I don't get this is like a weird funny dichotomy. Like when I'm DMing for y'all, I don't go into like a maladaptive daydream space.
Oh, Sam, I don't either, because I'm too worried about.
Yeah, I have to. There's a lot of like other things running in the background that keep me from really like throwing myself in that dream state. But when we did Ravenloft, the whole scene of like my character Cadence dying and then Anima being introduced,
that was really good.
That was like, oh,
that was really, really good.
Oh, it was so good.
That was also wild because like none of us except Bex and the DM like knew what the fuck was happening.
Yeah.
So like
I knew some stuff, but I didn't know everything that was going to happen.
And the rest was like, I knew that at some point Cadence was going to die and like Anna was going to come in. I knew it was probably going to happen soon, but like it was kind of the moment of like, is this it? Are we doing it? Like, is it happening right now?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's happening right now.
Yeah. He just gave me the cue of like, it'll happen when you're out at sea and there'll be a storm.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. My cue was if we're out at sea and there's a storm, it's GG.
Yeah.
Right. And so once that happened and we knew we were heading towards a storm, I was like, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
But I did not know that like Bex and the DM had been colluding.
That element, yeah.
At all. And so we're like in the storm, we're trying to manage, you know, everybody's like all hands on deck on the sails and whatever. And like I fully had the idea that I thought he was gonna have like a lightning bolt striker and that would be it, right?
Yeah.
Because she's metal on a ship.
Something.
Like, or most of the time she's like up in the crow's nest, just she's at the highest point.
Truly the most dangerous place for a
Truly the most dangerous place. And so, and
we had her up there like a lightning rod.
Yeah, and so like my theory was that, and so I was like up in the crow's nest, and I think somebody was like, Cadence should get down from the crow's nest because they are metal.
Yeah,
up in the highest point of this fucking ship. It's
right.
That's fair. So I get down, and Bex's character Tanari kept like staying close to me,
which was weird. I was like y'all were friends, like the characters
Bex's
were friends.
Character and my character were friends and whatever, and I was like the entire time I was like, Tanari needs to get away from me because if I get struck by lightning, what if they get hurt?
Right.
And I'm like trying to protect them by like doing other stuff. Like I knew the member of the crew that was going to be my new body,
Flip,
essentially. Yeah. So whenever they started almost going overboard and like I went over to help, but then Tanari came after me. I was like, no, Tanari, like
get away.
And then, you know, we both helped this crew member back onto the ship. And in that moment, Tanari looks over to Cadence and like pushes her off the edge.
Yeah. We were like, what?
And we all were like, I am so, what?
Because I was sitting by bed and like at a moment where I was like, are you for real? Like for real?
For real? Yeah. And so like I remember,
like, is that what happened? Or is that a joke?
I was gagged in the moment, and then like cogs in my brain started to click, and I remembered that like forever ago Tanari had been like taken aside privately, or Bex had even been taken aside privately out of game into a different room, and like it just clicked that I'm like, this months ago.
Yeah.
And like Bex has known the whole time. And it was like, what?
Yeah, and there was like a weird little siren or like mermaid or something that was there.
Like right before the storm.
Communicated that like to Tanari that it was like gonna be.
And
like,
I love that
time.
none of us suspected anything of this siren.
I mean, she seemed to just be minding her business, to be honest. It seemed like they were literally and figuratively bigger fish to fry.
Fair enough.
Like,
but like Yeah, and then I remember, like, she goes overboard, we have, like, a whole scene, and then lightning strikes her, and it's, like, the way that he like, fuck that man for real, but I will say, like, that scene was described so well, and, like, the music that paired with it, and, like, I was fully ascending out of my body.
Yeah.
And I was like, this was so good and everything I wanted. And I think the other thing that, like, the reason why that sticks, like, a core memory in my brain was, one, like, the scene that was portrayed was so impactful to me and, like, meaningful for this character. And then on the drive home.
Yeah, that, like, storm.
I had, like, we had a huge lightning storm right at, like, sunset. But the thing is, there was no rain. It was only lightning.
Yeah.
And, like, all the clouds were
like colorful, like sunset colored.
Like sunset. And it was the exact description of what he's, like, basically said during the eye of the storm. And I've been listening to the song he played on the whole ride home. And I was like, I've left my body.
Yeah.
Like,
I've achieved my ultimate form.
I'm astral projecting right now because this is everything that could. I was so emotional. Like, on that drive, and I was like, yeah, like that theater of the mind moment paired with that memory, and I was like, that sticks in my brain.
Truly, yeah. Honestly,
so much. I loved it. I'm just a sucker for theater of the mind because I just like the daydream.
I do too. Yeah, it's nice. It's a little stressful, like, as someone who loves it so much, when I'm running it, to, like, feeling like I'm not, that you're, like, it's not hitting as hard. I think because, like, when you're running it, you don't have
you're
that
not
feedback.
In that space, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's, like, it always, or for me, it often feels like it falls flat in my own head, and then I'm like, oh, that's disappointing. But, yeah, that's the challenge with theater of the mind, I think, for me when I'm running it is, trusting that it is not having imposter syndrome, or trusting that, like,
I've had a little bit of that because, again, like, being in the driver's seat, you kind of don't get to go into that space with everybody else, and wondering if it's having the effect that you've felt at other tables, because you're like, yeah, I'm describing it and, like, we're running it, but I've had a different experience for y'all playing it.
Yeah, for me, it's always, like, things that are premeditated. Those especially are the ones that I can't just, like, click into and, like, be in the maladaptive, like, space with y'all. Where, like, when Mahanu was, like, Revna's former partner was, like, introduced, like, that, I knew it was coming, and I was hyper aware of, like, how I wanted it to happen, and, like, where he would have been in the building when y'all are trying, like, when he's gonna come in. And then, like, I didn't love the order in which I introduced things because it felt like it would have been better to do it a different way in my brain. So, like, that, I didn't think it was good at all. But, like, other just, like, bantery scenes, like, or things that are purely more improv, I can just sort of click into. And then those I do feel like I'm co-creating a little bit more. And those can be like, no, that was fun. But yeah, it is, because it sucks, because it's always the ones that, like, they're premeditated, I've planned, I want them to hit.
I'm trying to those make sure are the ones off the way that I wanted to. Yeah,
those are the ones that I will think are bad.
Yeah, 100%.
Whether they are or not.
Yeah,
like
because I've had moments where it's like or I've had moments, not necessarily that, but, like, I had a moment where, for example, it's a mix of, like, things that were somewhat premeditated, but a little bit improv, or, like, I introduce like, I'll cite this one. Like, there's a character in our Strixhaven campaign that is now having a big part in Bex's arc named the Marquis. And that's my baby girl. I love him.
Made in your own image.
Truly. But there's a point where, for reasons I will not spoil to Mariah, he's important to a lot of the characters.
Rude. How dare you?
But your character was actually one of the first ones to interact with him.
Yeah.
And you by chance ran into him at a fountain. And the conversation that y'all had there, it was, again, one of those things I'm like, I've planned a lot around this character. And you're having the first interaction with him, and there are things that I'm like, I wasn't prepared for that interaction, so I just, like, was rolling off the cuff. And then once the scene ended, I was like, there are things he would have said.
Yeah. Because I like
that I didn't say because I didn't think about
her full name.
Yeah.
Which she usually wouldn't have done. So it's like that was a bit out of character for her to like give her full like paternal and maternal last name, and then he knows her mother's family.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, there was things that like when you said those things that after the fact I was like, fuck. Like,
yeah, that's always
he would have said other things or like reacted differently or things like that, and like that sucks sometimes, but like there's also no shame in just being like, literally how I went to you was like, hey girl,
yeah, that's fine,
my bad, I forgot that things would have happened
information
differently.
is still fun. Like, yeah,
here's the information you gleaned from that.
Exactly.
What would have been
exactly, yeah.
had I been of sound mind and body in the panic.
Because we play for so long too, I feel like it's sometimes.
Oh yeah, there's things that slip through the cracks.
Yeah,
all the time.
And we improv so much that it is hard to keep track of like what pieces are in motion now. Like I keep walking myself into having to orchestrate these big NPC heavy scenes in VTM, and like I have another one that's gonna come up where I'm like, fuck. Everybody, like, or almost everybody is gonna have shit that could happen.
Yeah.
Depending on 1,000,001 things.
Yeah.
And so trying to figure out, like, okay, what is the order of operations of, like, what are the most pressing things that, like, need to happen, or who's gonna be more motivated to talk, or, like, if somebody says something stupid, and, like, who knows? And so just trying to, like, that's why I need to organize my Obsidian, like, more to, like, have, or just, like, write out who's gonna be, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll, like, write out who's gonna be there, and then, like, what beef they have with each of you.
Write out the beef.
Yeah, just to keep track of it, or, like, why they would be interested in you, each of your characters. Because, yeah, it's exciting. It's like, oh, there's too many people here.
No, literally.
Can half of you, I know I put you all here, but can half of you fucking go home and come back tomorrow night?
Literally me stressed out about how Callista's arc is going to, like, finalize. I'm like,
I don't even know what that's going to be.
There's so many people, and they're all going to be in a room.
Even if it's
so
just her, even if it's just
happening.
her family, even if it's just her
family alone is too many.
Even if it's just her nuclear family, like no aunts, uncles, cousins, anybody, just her nuclear family
is too much.
Is too many.
I love it though, but
it's great.
Yeah, but like there is a moment of solace. Like every time I'm in my car, I'm like thinking and plotting and scheming, and I think about what that arc is gonna look like, and I'm like, God damn, it's gonna be a lot of me talking to myself.
I know.
It's gonna be a lot of me yelling at myself at a table.
I'm gonna have that too, where it's gonna be me flirting with myself, and just be having weird power play-esque conversations with myself. Which is maybe something to think about at a different time.
Oh man.
But
yeah, it's a fucking time to think about. But
that's kind of because you can maladaptive daydream prep your way into this.
I can, and that is exactly how I prep my way.
Is helpful because if you know it's just gonna be you and God, like you can pre-plan it a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah. There's hella planning going into that shit for me.
I'm gonna have to start planning a little bit, I think. I've made I've like shot an elephant, I'm trying to eat it all in one bite. And
the amount of times I've been in my car talking out dialogues or like monologues that will happen eventually because I'm just like, I need to get this in my DNA by the time that shit
because like the
off.
Bloodstones are a monologue heavy family.
Truly.
Like they love a good State of the Union.
Dramatics.
They love a good State of the Union address. They love a good
Oh man. Yeah. It's gonna be a time. And like the fact that like, well actually like I think that whole arc genuinely I think is going to be a little bit of blend of the theater of the mind and like a physical map situation.
That's interesting.
Because again, like it's a ball and you kind of need to know where the players are, but then, combat might happen. Who knows?
I'm just taking notes in my brain. Oh yeah, because your finale. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it would be a ball, wouldn't it?
It would be a ball. Fight in a ballroom.
Well,
shit. But yeah, it's It's been interesting to think about, and plan both the theater of the mind aspect of that and what basically the combat is going to look like and how everything's going to be laid out. That one I do low-key want to maybe get some physical pieces.
That would be cool. Oh, that's gonna be nice and awkward for my character, isn't it? Is her ex already gonna be married by that point?
Let me think. Yeah.
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 Incredible.
Already married, if not basically on the way down the aisle right after.
Okay, yeah. So it's just whether, because it would probably be Callista's announcement ball, effectively, right?
Callista's on an accelerated trek.
True.
True.
True. I'm not gonna say anything else but true. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. But it will be a very ambitious, but I hope a beautiful blend of both.
That's gonna be a mess.
The mind and physical.
That's gonna be some telenovela shit, is what that's gonna be.
I can't wait. It's gonna be so good.
That's so stressful.
Yeah. It is looking like it is time for us. So thank you so much for joining us.
For whatever the hell this was.
And we will see you next time. Bye. Table Talk is a podcast brought to you by Mythos Media Productions, bringing you a new episode every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcast. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Table Talk RPG, or check us out at our website, mythosmediaproductions.godaddysites.com. All business inquiries can reach out to us via email at info@mythosmediaproductions.com.